Hello, all you fellow self-foot shooters out there, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor. I mean, who among us has not shot ourselves in the foot many times?
I mean, metaphorically, sure.
I've never done it literally yet. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
Gazizza.
Good news radio ref.
Uh-huh.
Today we're going to recap and discuss Season 5, Episode 4, Nor the Battle to the Strong. Alternate title, Space Mash.
Well, yeah, pretty much.
Low-hanging fruit, but I'll take it. This is also, depending on how you count the episodes, the 100th or 102nd episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
But never 101st?
It depends on if Emissary and Way of the Warrior count as one episode each or two episodes each.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah. So,
cool. I'm going to say Way of the Warrior is 2 and Emissary is 1, just so it can be 101st.
All right. That was something I meant to point out 2 episodes ago when, on the ship, which would have been the 98th or 100th.
Yeah.
I forgot to write it down in my notes, and thus it did not get said. Anyway, just in case this is your first time watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine, we will attempt to only discuss spoilers up through this episode, but all other spoilers are fair game.
Well, since it's in this weird Schrodinger's, we're either 100 episodes or 102 episodes in. What if we spoil stuff for like 2 episodes after this one, because that's really 102?
Right, yeah, in the probability cloud of spoilers, there might actually be ones from 2 episodes ahead, so watch out.
Now I want to see what's the name of the episode 2 episodes ahead season.
Is it Trials and Tribulations?
It might be. Hold on, let's see. I know that's coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yep, sure is.
So, man, I don't actually know what to spoil from Trials and Tribulations, but other than they go back in time.
It already happened, so it's tough.
Star Trek days. The ship originally... No, this isn't the ship.
No, that was a different one.
Not only is this not the ship, the last episode wasn't even the ship. And this is a
probability cloud thing.
Yeah. Nor the Battle to the Strong originally aired October 21st, 1996. It was written by Renee Echevarria, story by Bryce R. Parker, and directed by Kim Friedman. So Bryce R. Parker,
Bryce
has
R.
entered.
Parker. Let's see. Let's see if there's anything about him other than the fact that it does note that one of the character, the guy who shoots himself in the foot, refers to another guy in his unit or his platoon who was named Bryce. And that's because of Bryce R. Parker. But let's see if he's done anything actual. Okay. He wrote the story for this episode of Deep Space Nine, and then worked on as a visual effects coordinator on many motion pictures, including Batman and Robin, the 1997 movie The Peacemaker, Ants with a Z, the Woody Allen movie,
Sure.
Forces of Nature, Jurassic Park 3, The Matrix Reloaded, and The Matrix Revolutions, but not the original Matrix, I guess, and also Catwoman 2004, which...
Oh, man. Just a bunch of winners there.
Yeah, this is not the most stellar, like list here, my man. I mean, I guess you're working. That's the important thing, but...
Sure.
Oh, okay, more recently, when I go to his IMDb, he's done visual effects for Dune, and Joker, and Venom, and She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. Some of these are good.
Oh, sure. All right, so... And he wrote one episode of Star Trek, or he came up with the story for one episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Yep. Oh man, he's got a whole, he's the DVD manager on some Pixar movies, such as Toy Story 3 and Up.
Nice.
I don't know what the DVD... and the DVD coordinator on such movies as WALL-E and Ratatouille. So, I don't know what DVD manager or coordinator does.
Maybe he just makes sure that DVD is good or something. I mean, somebody has to be in charge of making the DVD, I guess.
I do remember hating the box that the Wall-E DVD came in when it first came out, but that may not be his fault.
Yeah, is the DVD manager in charge of just the DVD or the DVD and the box?
Yeah, no, I don't know.
These are important questions.
Now you got me looking up what a DVD manager does.
No,
there's all sorts of software that are called DVD managers, so I can't find like what the actual person does. Oh well.
Can you go to like the Department of Labor or something and look up what a DVD manager does?
Do they have a list of jobs there?
I don't know.
U.S. Department of Labor. Here we go. Actors, Occupational Outlook Handbook from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I don't know if that's gonna... The SCA Directory of Occupations, 5th edition.
Okay. We're getting there.
DVD is not anywhere on this list, which is a very, very long list.
Okay, well, we're never going to know.
Nope.
I guess. Unless somebody goes and finds that guy and asks him. Or if somebody listening to us right now has that job and can tell us.
I randomly scroll down, and among the jobs on here are brush/pre-commercial thinner, choke setter, and faller/bucker.
Sure. Yeah, those sound like real jobs.
We took such a turn in the conversation so early this time.
Yeah. Anyway, Cirroc Lofton is in this episode.
He totally is. Yep.
I can confirm Cirroc Lofton is in this episode. As Jake Sisko.
I feel like they're like, hey, you remember that emotional episode we had with Jake last season? We need one of those again.
Right. It's like, we could do another visitor.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Bryce R. Parker is over there. He's like, hey, you know MASH? What if we did that?
Also,
and then Renee Echevarria is like, okay, I know what we can do.
So the notes in here indicate that the original idea of the episode, which I assume that means the story that Bryce came up with,
sure,
is that Jake, who has been established as an aspiring writer, would have experiences similar to those of Ernest Hemingway during World War I. However, there are a number of homages to other outside influences. For example, the scene with Jake and Burke in the trench bears a striking resemblance to a scene in the 1930 Lewis Milestone film All Quiet on the Western Front. Also, the story is based partly on the 1985 Stephen Crane novel The Red Badge of Courage.
Yes.
Which was not about World War I, but...
Sure, but somehow I dodged reading that in school.
The Red Badge of Courage, I feel like... I know we read All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah.
But I don't recall... What is the Red Badge of Courage even about?
I mean, it's about
a Civil War story. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I remember reading that in school.
Anyway, so Cirroc Lofton, Jake Sisko, flies home on a runabout, listening to Dr. Bashir, with typical Dr. Bashir self-importance, excitedly explaining the supposed drama of the medical conferences they just attended.
I mean, look, Jake, it's partially on you that you're like, I'm going to go to a medical conference and get an exciting story. Like, really? That was your plan. All right.
Yeah. So I think I'm trying to, because it's made clear this was Jake's idea.
Yep.
Like, nobody else planted this idea in his head. So I think maybe he was thinking, if he could hang out with Dr. Bashir for a week at some conference off the station, maybe he'd get some of that, like, Dr. Bashir lady company.
Well, I think apparently he proposed this story idea, a profile on Dr. Bashir, and I assume that someone is interested in running that story because Bashir was nominated, the youngest ever nominated for that award last season or season before, whenever that was. So it's like, Bashir is a famous guy-ish, like in his profession. So maybe I can like piggyback off that to get like one of my writings published.
Okay, so maybe. Like he's just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, I guess, for in terms of getting published.
And see, this is the thing. This is the test of whether you're a good author or not. Can you take this dry subject and make it interesting for your readers. And apparently Jake is like, no, I really can't.
Right. So, yeah, Jake does not share the Doctor's enthusiasm for the controversial debate of the effects of quantum whatever on whatever, and launches into a voiceover, which is sometimes just his inner thoughts and sometimes the thing that he's writing.
You can't really blame, like, everyone reacts the same way to Bashir babble. So it's not necessarily Jake's fault, but you should have known better, my man. Yeah. You've met Bashir
Jake
before.
Is learning a lesson that everybody else on the show has already learned, which is do not be alone in a runabout with Dr. Bashir.
Oh, it's so true. Yeah. I remember when Kira learned that lesson, when he got all creepy in the runabout with her, and it was like, dude.
Yep. Kira has learned it. O'Brien has learned it.
Oh, man, O'Brien's learned that repeatedly, I feel like.
But yeah, now Jake is regretting his story idea and wishing some horrible medical disaster would happen so that he could write an exciting story about it.
And then a horrible medical disaster happens.
Yeah. Then suddenly, as if a genie was listening to his thoughts and decided to grant his wish, a thing starts beeping on the console.
This console, every time you're in a runabout, there's this unexpected beep.
That thing is just always beeping. It's like an episode. An episode needs to start happening now. Beep.
the plot activation beep.
Yep. So bad news: the Klingons have invaded Agilon Prime.
No.
And the Federation colony there needs doctors. What's Agilon Prime? What's the political and/or strategic significance of this attack? Why are the Klingons still attacking the Federation after the whole Armageddon Rising incident? Stop asking questions. This week's episode isn't about that stuff.
It does feel like this belonged before we started making peace with the Klingons, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah. So, yeah, maybe it got delayed, and they're like, I just rushed in a line, like, so much for the ceasefire. All right. Dr. Bashir is reluctant to take Jake into danger at this point, but Jake is itching for some excitement. I'm 18, he tells the doctor, which in my experience is code for nothing stupid I've done has killed me yet, and from that I have extrapolated that I am immortal.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Yeah, that's what that means when an 18-year-old says that. Dr. Bashir gives in, and they set course. But before we get to that adventure, we have to get the rest of our main characters into the episode, so we get a scene where they all hang out in Ops trying Quark's experimental caffeine-free Ractigino.
I mean, we now have, like, decaf coffee. I don't understand why it's like I mean, it's not Klingon coffee. Maybe Klingon coffee just cannot be done decaffeinated, but
I mean, caffeine is caffeine, right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe because they put a chemical in it that neutralizes the caffeine.
Oh, is that how that works?
I think that's how they do it.
I don't drink coffee at all, so I've never paid attention.
Yeah, maybe that chemical reacts badly with all the other stuff in the Ractigino. I don't know. Oh, and also we learned that on Ferenginar, pregnancy is considered a rental.
I feel like there maybe I'm remembering a future discussion, but I feel like there was like a thing about like how Rom paid someone to have his kid or whatever, and she took him for everything he was worth, or I don't know. That maybe that's a spoiler. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't think we've had that yet, but Sisko comes out of his office and explains the Agilon Prime situation, and they're like, "Should we go try to help?" And Sisko's like, "Nah, the Farragut has got it. Let's just chill.
They're closer than us.
Nothing bad will happen." Then Dax jokes that Sisko won't have much time to look through Jake's things, which seems to give the captain an idea. He's like,
Jake's been gone for a while already. He could have been doing it up till now.
That's what he's thinking. He's like, why didn't I do that already?
I want to see what we know about the Farragut. So apparently the Farragut is was a Nebula class ship.
Okay.
Helped recover the crew of the Enterprise D following the Viridian 3 incident.
Oh. Nice.
So, too bad they're dead now.
Yep. Is that the ship that beamed them up at the end?
I guess so.
When they were like Riker and Picard were taking their last look around or whatever.
Yeah, I think so.
The runabout arrives at Agilon Prime, and Bashir decides to land on the planet because the plot needs the runabout to be down there later. I mean, there's magnesite in the rocks, so they can't beam. And also, for the first time ever, Bashir realizes that leaving an unattended runabout in orbit is a bad idea.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you're being attacked by Klingons and ships, like, they'd be like, hey, let's blow up that ship. So, you know.
Right. As we learned just a couple of episodes ago.
Yep. Apparently, the planet model for Agilon Prime was first used for the Ennis/Null Ennis moon in Battle Lines. And then again, for a Cardassian moon in Improbable Cause and Treachery, Faith in the Great River. And then the Teflon homeworld in The Quickening. So it's shown up repeatedly.
I cannot believe they reused something. So Bashir tries to give Jake a final warning that they may experience some moderate to severe horrors of war when they get down there. But Jake is game. They arrive at the underground field hospital where a bunch of not good stuff is happening, and Jake is like, oh geez.
I do like that they're like, oh hey, you're a doctor? Yeah, we heard you were coming. Just jump in, wherever. Do doctor stuff. Right. And Jake's like, oh, what should I do? And he's like, get out of the way. That's what you should do.
Yeah, go write an article. So Jake finds a bleeding man sitting on the ground and tries to get him help, but it's too late. Then Jake moves to where Bashir is treating a man with a wounded foot. The man tells the incredibly true-sounding story that he stepped over what he thought was a dead Klingon, but it was actually an alive Klingon who shot him in the foot.
Yep.
As based on what I've seen of...
do.
Yeah. This is typical Klingon behavior. Maybe. Dr. Bashir announces that the injury is a phaser burn, and it's immediately clear what's up to Star Trek fans who understand the significance of that.
Yeah.
If you were just a casual viewer, you might not catch on quite so quick.
Hey, I saw Star Trek Generations. Klingons use Type 3 disruptors or whatever, because it was like, oh man, the people who attack the station use Type 3 disruptors. That must mean it's the Klingons, the Romulans, or the Breen.
Mm-hmm. Only those three people.
I guess, yeah.
The man drops his story and says, you weren't there. You don't know what it was like. And Jake stands there speechless while the man tells the true tale of what happened, and then has a really disturbing emotional breakdown.
I mean, it's dramatic as hell.
Yeah. Jake seems disgusted and sits down to try writing, but he's quickly called by a medic to help another wounded man.
So yes, do something useful, Jake. Good.
Yeah.
So, interesting note here. In the original draft of the teleplay, this is not where the story is set. So, the first idea was that it would be a Cardassian hospital on a Cardassian planet under siege by the Klingons. And Jake and Bashir come into conflict with the Cardassian woman running the hospital because the Cardassians believe that males are relatively inferior in the science and medical domains, as previously established in that Destiny episode. And so the reason that we decided not to go that way was because having all those Cardassian extras would be super expensive, and they were trying to save up money for Trials and Tribulations.
Yep. Yeah, I was thinking, I was like, it seems like we've had a lot of really expensive looking episodes in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we had Armageddon Rising, or Apocalypse Rising, whatever that episode was called. Then, the ship, then I guess looking for Parmok in all the wrong places. It wasn't really big budget, I guess, but
no, yeah, I don't think so. I mean, and the ship, I mean, you had to build an interior set for that ship, I guess, but they really did spend the majority of the episode in that one interior set and then that one exterior location. So I feel like that's can't be all that expensive. I don't know.
Maybe not. So yeah, before he knows it, Jake is in a uniform helping to carry the wounded and carry out the dead and put the dead in the big dead people room.
Yep.
Eventually the wounded stop coming and the exhausted doctors get a break. On Deep Space Nine, Odo comes to the captain's office after a forgot I wasn't a changeling accident. So he jumped off a thing planning to change into a bird, and then he forgot he couldn't do that. And so he fell down and broke his leg.
I don't know if the station stuff even counts as a B-plot in this episode, but that is absolutely one of those moments where it's like, that could be in any episode, that one little scene, and like you would not know what episode it was related to.
Right. And he tells Sisko the story of the Uridian cheaters who were cheating at Dabo using the gravimetric sensor thing, and Sisko was like, ingenious. Like he's suddenly just had like he's like, I want in on this.
Well, I think the impression I get is that he's trying to keep Odo talking because he really wants to get to the part where Odo jumps off the thing, because he already knows that that's what happens, but he wants to make Odo say it.
Right. So he's just egging him on.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sisko quickly slips into ruminating on the fragile nature of life and how he's no longer able to shield his son from it. And then Odo was like, wow, this got a little heavier than I was expecting.
Also, why aren't we talking about me anymore?
Right. He announces that he probably will not be using his new human sperm to make a baby anytime soon. Then Dax comes in with the news that the Farragut got blown up before getting to Agilon Prime. And Dax and Sisko run out to get the Defiant ready while Odo sits there with a look on his face like, geez, that meeting was a roller coaster of emotions.
So you should have left earlier.
Back on Agilon Prime, blood-soaked Jake and Bashir sit down to a well-earned dinner. Bashir is in high spirits and starts joking around with his food, which causes Jake to have to run out and throw up. Just gonna make an incision here.
You know, it's once again, we're in MASH now, so we have to
right.
have the dark comedy.
Yeah, exactly. Jake wonders about the man who shot himself and how a trained, disciplined member of Starfleet could buckle under pressure like that. He decides you probably just don't know what you're made of until you're staring death in the face. Then Dr. Bashir goes and sees if he can find an opening to hit on the head doctor, but he can't find one, and it turns out she's married to the science officer of one of the Federation ships fighting the Klingons. So Jake has a chat with a cheerful medic, whose name I never got, but he's the medic guy, who brings Jake up to speed on the realities of fighting the Klingons. So he's like,
this guy is really depressing.
I mean, he doesn't seem too worried, but
he's just like, oh yeah, we're totally all gonna die. But
yeah.
You know, what can you do, right? That guy's name is Kirby, by the way.
Okay, Kirby, like the balloon monster that eats stuff. Okay.
Yep, exactly like that. Apparently, the script specifies that he is non-Starfleet and not much older than Jake, so that's what they came up with.
He's like, yeah, it's not really a problem. All you have to do is inhale a Klingon, then you'll get his powers.
That would have been an episode. I'd watch that.
You know, there's all these like aliens around. We got to see more of these like, you know, cool superpowers and stuff. The whole situation scares Jake, and he works through his feelings through his writing. Then there's a boom. The Klingons have knocked out the main generator. Dr. Bashir remembers that there's a spare generator on the runabout, and volunteers himself and Jake to run outside and get it. So, yep, he's totally committed to keeping Jake safe.
Yeah, that's the part where it's like, come on, get like anybody else, like maybe somebody with a gun to go with you,
right?
Instead of taking your commanding officer's civilian son out into the war zone.
Right. Or how about, you know, just any of these like big able-bodied looking guards standing around?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Kirby clearly didn't want to go, but there's plenty of people around.
Yeah. I gotta say, Jake Sisko might need to eat a hamburger, because
he's a little willowy, maybe is the word.
Yeah. So when they get outside to the surface of the planet Southern California, gentle poofs of smoke start coming out of the ground, which apparently are supposed to be shelling. So, I don't know, you know, when I think about shelling, I think about, you know, like the storming the beach scene and Saving Private Ryan, where it's like these just bone-rattling explosions of dirt and human guts that leave a big crater.
Just poofs.
Yeah, it's just a poof, poof. It's like, you know, the special effects before a magic show.
Advances in technology of shells have changed the game dramatically.
It's like it can go off 6 inches from you and you're fine. But if it goes off like 3 inches from you, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So a poof of smoke goes off next to Dr. Bashir, knocking him out. And then Jake hauls ass out of there, leaving Bashir on the ground. Which, editorial, that was the correct thing to do.
I mean, Jake's not the doctor, and we've already proven that going over there is dangerous, so...
Right. Yeah, it's a sound decision, but... He runs through a battlefield of dead bodies, which he does not find pleasant, then stumbles upon a wounded Federation soldier.
I mean, is it weird that my thought was, like, as you're running through those dead bodies, I'm like, well, dude, maybe grab one of those weapons just in case you run into somebody.
Get yourself a bat'leth, at least.
I'm a Klingon, totally. See? Here's my bat'leth.
It's like, hello, I am Klingon, Kapla. Oh, hello, fellow Klingon. You may
Kapla
pass.
to you too, fellow Klingon.
So he helps the wounded soldier with his med kit. Then the man gives him a pouch of water, which Jake drinks in the least efficient way possible.
Sure.
He, tears the top off the pouch, which causes about 75% of the water to immediately spill out. And then he, throws it at his face, and then gets, I think, about 2 or 3 drops into his mouth. The soldier tells a heroic tale of holding off the Klingons while his platoon got away. Which, Jake, by comparison, does not feel very good.
Yeah, now you look even worse.
Jake tries to make sense of it all, thinking maybe if he helps this man live, it will make up for running away when Dr. Bashir needed his help. The soldier says, "Sorry, kid, life doesn't work like that." Then he coughs up blood and dies.
He dies to prove a point. I mean, this guy was so determined that Jake couldn't help him. It's like, no, you can't pick me up and take me to the doctor. My guts will just spill out. And I'm like, it doesn't look that bad from where I'm sitting, but I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, in the original draft of this script, you don't have Burke, the guy in the foxhole or whatever. What happens is Jake falls into a foxhole with a Klingon. The Klingon was blind after being wounded in battle, and he decides to use Jake to help him survive. They remain together in the foxhole for several days, and grudgingly come to respect and understand one another. Eventually, however, Jake reveals the truth about how he ended up in the hole, that he was running away from the battle and had abandoned Bashir, and the Klingon flings him out because he doesn't want to die with a coward.
Huh.
So, Renee Ashvaria apparently really, this is one of his favorite parts of the story that he's written. And then Ira Steven Behr is like, nah, gotta change it. Make it a Starfleet officer instead. And Renee Ashvaria, not happy with that. So it says, this caused a serious conflict between the two men. But in the end, Behr was able to convince Ashvaria the scene needed to go. His reasoning was, at the end of the episode, the Klingons are depicted as bloodthirsty and savage, but we've just spent half an episode getting to like one. Behr felt this was a contradiction, and it took away from the impact of the episode. After the episode was finished, Ashvaria admitted that had been the correct move.
All right. I mean, we can't have Jake learning that particular nuance of war, that the enemy is maybe just like you, but...
No. I do just like this picture. It's like they've spent days relying on each other, getting to know each other. It's like, wait, you're a coward? No way! I just like the phrasing. He flings him out. So, I love this image of, you cut to above the foxhole, and then you see Jake just, fly through the air as he's thrown out.
Nice.
Just the word fling. I like the picture that creates.
Right. I mean, you'd think, a blinded Klingon would want to do one of their many ritual suicides or something, but
yeah, he'd probably be like, hey, will you kill me please, you're one of the enemy, just stab it right here, it's all good.
Or he'd attack Jake to get an honorable death or something. Totally. So we cut to the Defiant, where for some reason we get the majestically soaring through space establishing shot instead of the zooming at full speed shot.
Nah, we're taking our time.
So it kind of creates the impression that they're just be like, yeah, we'll go save Jake when we get there, whatever.
Also, maybe you want to be cloaked. I'm just throwing that out there.
Sisko tries to keep his mind off matters by tinkering with the replicators, and Dax relates to his situation with the story of reading to her sick daughter, And luckily that story had a happy ending. Which Sisko...
Yeah. I can't imagine that. Like, oh yeah, and then she died. It was messed up.
This is why she didn't tell the story of her son who was trapped in a war zone and eventually died.
Yeah.
She's saving that story for a different time.
It'll be relevant one of these days.
Jake makes it back to the cave hospital and learns that somehow the injured Dr. Bashir made it back carrying the generator all by himself. So, I like, he at first he looks relieved, then he hears this, like, heroic tale of the wounded Bashir, like, dragging the generator all by himself, and he gets this really, like, ashamed look on his face.
Yeah, I mean, you're not hurt at all, so that is not the best look, but once again, I feel like everyone should be aware, he is a reporter and not a trained for battle person of any stripe, so...
Yeah, and, like, nobody in this entire episode seems to hold it against him, or I think would hold it against him if they knew his story. So
I'm curious what Bashir's reaction would have been to knowing that Jake abandoned him to die and ran away. Like, I like the final scene with him and his dad being like, no, anybody who's been in battle would recognize themselves here. Like, that's cool. I wanted there to be that same scene, but Bashir instead, and he like finishes reading, he's like, oh.
I mean, we did see Bashir feeling pretty bad for dragging Jake out there, so...
As he should.
Yeah. This is really all on Bashir. So, yeah. We also learned that the runabout was destroyed, so runabouts are just dropping like flies these days.
You know, that it does occur to me, though, once you said this is all on Bashir, and then the runabout gets destroyed. You know what they could have done? Is they could have beamed Bashir down to where they landed the runabout, and then Jake could have flown the runabout home. So as not to be involved in a horrible battle that he can't contribute to in any way.
That's a good point. Although later we learn they're using transporter scramblers. Yeah. But that wasn't their excuse at first. Their excuse was the hospital was inside some magnetic rocks or something. So
yeah.
Nitpick of the week. Yeah, so then... and also the Klingons are really close to attacking the hospital. Then Bashir apologized to Jake, sending Jake further into a guilt trip. Then Jake goes back to his writing, where he comes to the conclusion that he's just a coward. He takes some food to shot self and footman, who is in relatively high spirits, planning for the job he wants to get after he gets court-martialed and kicked out of Starfleet.
Assuming they don't all die, because the Klingons are about to attack. So.
Yep. He plans to sign up for the next mining expedition to the Gamma Quadrant. So that sounds nice and safe. For sure.
100% not going to die there.
There's no brutal warriors over there in the Gamma Quadrant. Jake suggests he could stay in Starfleet with some counseling, but the man insists he's done. Then the medics sit around joking about the relative merits of various ways to die. It's like, do you want to be vaporized? Do you want to get your head cut off?
I do like the Bolian's point where he's like, if you get your head cut off, there's a good chance the last thing you'll ever see is your own headless body. Is that really what you want? And I'm like, man, this guy talks sense, Yeah.
But also he's worried that getting vaporized might feel like being boiled alive, so.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but I think that it's probably too fast to... okay, to be fair, no one we've ever seen get hit with like a phaser or disruptor blast and then get disintegrated. None of them looks like they're having a good time.
Right.
So I don't think it's fun, but it won't last long in any case.
At least it's fast. But this whole thing sends Jake into a tirade about the pointlessness of war. And then Bashir takes him aside and asks him what's wrong, but Jake can't bear to tell the truth. And then Bashir leaves him alone, and Jake just sits down and starts crying. Eventually the attack comes. The decision is made to evacuate the hospital to get everyone safely down the peninsula, which maybe they should have done earlier.
Yeah, I mean, if that was an option, why did we not do that?
I mean, maybe it's still pretty dangerous, but I don't know. Jake is one of the last out. The group he's running with runs into some Klingons, and everyone starts shooting. Jake ducks behind a thing, picks up a fallen man's rifle, and starts firing wildly over his head. This causes a bunch of rocks to fall down and the cave to collapse. Jake is knocked out, and when he wakes up, his father is there, telling him what a brave thing he did, sealing the tunnel so everybody else could escape.
Yeah, they all would have died if not for Jake.
Yep.
What a hero.
But back on Deus Ex 9, Jake shows his father his story, in which he admits that when he picked up that phaser, he was motivated by the same fear of death that made him run away. But Ben says he's proud of Jake for having the courage to look inside himself and write it for others to read. So that's his kind of courage. And then they hug. The end. And Jake smiles kind of weirdly in this hug, but whatever.
I do like... So the two Klingons show up and start killing people, right?
Uh-huh.
And there's two Starfleet guys there who apparently these Starfleet guys all wear this battle uniform we've never seen before,
right.
But whatever. And both of these Starfleet guys just really suck at aiming.
Uh-huh.
And like get multiple shots off against the Klingons, none of which connect with either of these two guys from like 10 feet away, and then they both get killed. Yeah. So I was like, something is wrong with the training that we are giving these Starfleet guys. I
have a feeling this Starfleet battle training isn't all it's cracked up to be.
Maybe these guys got like the truncated course.
Right. I don't know.
Okay. Additional notes on this one.
Okay.
Alexander Siddig enjoys the episode and says, I really like the relationship with Jake. There's potential for a terrific relationship there. He needs an older brother, and Bashir is perfect for that. So I guess we'll see how well this relationship between the two of them develops in the future.
Sure.
According to Ira Stephen Bear, this episode is another one of their attempts to move the production further afield from the next generation's clean Teflon image, just getting down in the mud and the horror of death.
Uh-huh. Which is what everybody really wants from Star Trek.
Yeah. So, this recalls comments made by Hans Beimler regarding the episode The Ship, where he points out that in a show like Star Trek, viewers often forget the people being killed are real people. I mean, they're not real, but...
Right. But in the fiction of the story, the people are real people.
Right, yeah. And then, interesting bit, so they wrap filming on the episode, and director Kim Friedman realizes that they're running 3 minutes short and has Renee Echevarria create some new material to fill that hole. Can you guess which part of the story was added after the fact?
Is it the decaf Ractigino scene?
Man, that would have made sense, but no, that's not it. That was in there.
Is it the Odo injury story?
No, also another good candidate, but no, that was in there too.
Okay, let me think. Is it just like the last scene where they put a ribbon on the whole episode?
No, I feel like without that scene, this would have been a different episode.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That scene is kind of essential for the episode. So
yeah, to like actually tell us what the moral. So no, the new scene is the second scene where Jake and the soldier who shot himself in the foot like talk to each other. I guess when he brings him the food, and it says, ironically, after the scene had been written and shot, both Echevarria and Friedman came to feel that it was the most thematically important scene in the entire episode.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise it's almost like, what was the point of even that guy?
So I guess we never would have known that he plans to be a miner after this if it hadn't been for the episode coming in 3 minutes short.
Yep. And maybe we'll see that guy again. Or he's in a novel or something.
The next time we visit a mine, maybe, keep an eye out. Maybe we'll run into that guy. Let me see. Let's see if anything about this guy. Who's this guy's name? Is he just Ensign? There's a guy credited as just Ensign.
Shot himself in foot guy.
Not alien Starfleet officer, not Bolian guy. Starfleet Ensign. Yep, that's the only name that he's given here. So there doesn't seem to be any additional information about him.
Oh. It's like later, it's like, the Jem'Hadar have attacked our Cormeline mine in the Gamma Quadrant.
I mean, we did just find a place to mine some Cormeline. Yeah. Maybe this all is going to fit together so well.
That's right. There's plenty of jobs opening up with all this Gamma Quadrant Cormeline, or Cormeline, or however you say it.
Whatever it was, yeah.
I keep switching it and forgetting.
So yeah, that's except for the notes about the title, which I will get into when we get to the title bit.
Sure.
That's what's in it.
So let's review. How do you feel about the episode "Nor the Battle to the Strong"?
Okay. So we've hit upon episodes previously where it's like, this is intended to be emotional, and I'm like, and it does a good job at what it's doing, but I'm just like, okay, this is where you've pushed me too far now, Star Trek. You've successfully made me feel things, but I don't like where you have taken me, and so I've marked down episodes for that reason.
Right.
I think this one was just the right amount for me. I'm like, I get the emotional impact, but it doesn't leave me feeling like, oh man, I wish I hadn't watched that, because like I don't like what the feelings that you are causing me to feel. So I think this is I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. It suffers for me, and I've addressed this before too. It focuses so much on one person. It's like the Quickening episode, where it's just all Bashir all the time, and then like Dax is in there for some seasoning. This one is like all Jake all the time, with Bashir in there a little bit, and then some completely like lift out of the episode and absolutely nothing changes scenes back on the station.
Right.
So I think that this one could be a captain for me if we actually incorporated other people into the episode better, but I'm gonna give it a commander.
Yeah, I'm maybe not quite as enthusiastic about it. So, I mean, I like most of what it's getting at. So I like Deep Space Nine kind of being, like you said, Deep Space Nine, and getting away from the usual Trek stuff and going into its own unique brand of like, the realities of war and all that. Sierra Lofton, good. Some good Jake acting there. And I like the... I generally like the Jake developing as a writer episodes. But I don't know. I felt maybe... I don't know if it was because like you said, it was just so Jake focused, but it felt a little thin at points, like stretched a little thin. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I was getting bored at a few points in this episode, even though I thought it was like, a pretty well done story for Jake, but
yeah,
I think maybe the pacing was just a little wonky at a few parts or something like that. But yeah, I mean, overall, I like the episode. It's just like, it's sort of almost on the cusp of the lieutenant commander and the commander for me.
Okay.
I think I'll go ahead and be generous and put it over on the commander also, but it's like a low commander.
So I do want to mention one complaint that I didn't bring up at the time that I have about the episode, generally speaking. Like, Guy in Foxhole felt like he played it really over the top too.
Yeah.
I was like, we're going into cartoon territory now. And so I went and looked this guy up to see what else he's done. You may recognize the voice, if not the face, as like one of the Joker's henchmen who helps him rob the bank at the beginning of The Dark Knight. The one who talks the most.
Oh, wow.
And
the one that gets hit by the bus?
The one that gets hit by the bus, exactly. Yep.
Nice.
But he's also appeared in somewhat briefly in a previous episode of Deep Space Nine, where he's in the episode Civil Defense.
Ooh.
As the legate who appears on screen and is like, I knew that you would try to run Dukat, so now you can't leave.
Oh, man. He is in... That's a good small bit to have.
Yeah.
On Star Trek.
Like, best part of that episode.
Yeah, he was kind of hamming it up a little bit as like grizzled soldier guy, but okay, next title review.
So the original or the working title of the episode was Portrait of a Life. Which, yeah, like that's so generic that it's good that we didn't go with that.
like this one was called Portrait of a Life, not like The Visitor.
No, yeah, that's what it says. This one.
Okay.
And so, do you recognize where the actual title comes from?
Well, I recognize it for a couple of reasons. Number one, because I went to Sunday school.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And number two, it's from the Book of Ecclesiastes, right?
It is.
Because number two, it's in the Strunks and Whites Elements of Style. And what I think is one of the most memorable parts of that, where it's kind of like illustrating kind of the difference between good writing and bad writing. And it's like it's like, it says, okay, here's one thing. It's like, here's how you could write something. It's like, in the final analysis, one has to conclude that ability is not always the final determiner of the outcome or whatever. And it's like, and here's how it's written in the Book of Ecclesiastes. And it's like, the race is not always to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor the whatever. So,
I mean, that's true. It's definitely more memorable. I don't know that Ecclesiastes is where I turn for like, this is writing at its finest.
Right. But I mean, just kind of like a good example about how basically like owning a thesaurus does not make you a good writer.
And I rereading this verse, it's like I don't remember, because the race to the swift and the battle to the strong, that part, right? That part you remember, but the entire verse is, I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill, but time and chance happeneth to them all. And like, and there illustrates the point that I just made, where I'm like, that's a hell of a sentence to have constructed here. So it's not exactly like, oh man, look at this amazing writing. But yes, you can pick out a bit and be like, look, see, this is a much more memorable way to say this sort of thing.
Right. I mean, it definitely conveys the point. Like, you're not confused about what the author is trying to communicate there.
It's true.
And you're not bored.
Nope.
So, and I'm not quite sure that the point of that passage really relates to the point of the episode, but...
Now you have me thinking about, like... So, it's... Well, I guess in a way, because Jake's like, oh man, I can make this mean something if I can save you. And the guy's like, no, that's not how life works, kid.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what it is. It's like, chance gets us all.
Right.
And then Jake ends up being proclaimed a hero for his, like, cowardly deeds, essentially.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, so maybe it works. I don't know.
Okay, so for memorability, I feel like this is, like, I mean, as pointed out by the other thing, this is a thing, you remember this.
Sure.
Like, I don't remember necessarily that it connects to this episode, which is, not the best memorability, but, like, right. In terms of being a creative title, being an appropriate title, I mean, we discussed, like, is it appropriate? Maybe-ish. And it's memorable on one level, at least. So I think that it's an okay title. We've definitely had much worse.
Right. Yeah, it just, I feel it's a little wonky the way it kind of connects to the episode, because it's like, if you told me that title and you think, it's like, well, what's the episode going to be about? You'd think, like, I don't know, like some kind of story of someone winning a battle against all odds or something like that. But
yeah, the underdog coming out on top.
So yeah,
it's interesting to feature, like, so heavily this battle, which is gonna probably go down in like a footnote in history about, like, this weird random battle that happened after peace negotiations had begun and didn't actually change anything.
Right.
So, like, that's an interesting choice. Yeah. And I kind of like that, at least.
Yeah. I mean, which Jake called out in his story, which was like, this was like a pretty dumb, meaningless battle in terms of history. But to the people who were there, it was, I mean, this whole huge thing, like this whole huge experience that probably nobody will ever think about again. Okay. Nitpick of the week. I think you called that one out pretty. Okay. I keep meaning to write down, like, several nitpick of the week options, and then
pick one, and then we can pick one. Yeah.
Yeah. Why? Maybe just Jake can't fly the runabout or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. Oh wait, didn't we have a whole thing where Jake and Nog try to figure out how to fly a runabout? And they do a shitty job of it.
I remember Nog was doing some training in a runabout simulator.
Yeah, right.
But I think that was a different time.
No, yeah, because the time I'm thinking of is when like Quark and Cisco get captured by the Jem'Hadar.
Right. And then they're trying to figure out that's right.
They want to deactivate the autopilot, and then they do, and then they can't tell the ship to fly.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So yeah, maybe that plan would not work, unless just Bashir sets the whole autopilot by himself. He's like, okay, don't touch anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the autopilot wasn't locked or whatever, then Jake being like, hey, fly us back to the station would have worked.
True.
Bashir can just be like, okay, once I'm gone, tell the computer, fly me back to the station.
Right. Okay. So okay, here's a segment I've been toying with. I call it "What's Going On in the Mirror Universe Right Now."
Okay.
Or Meanwhile in the Mirror Universe. I don't know what's going on in the Mirror Universe in this episode, but
well, I mean, given that the Klingon Cardassian alliance like long ago defeated the Terrans, unless we're going to set up a reverse thing where like the Terran rebellion is attacking a Klingon occupied Ageron, whatever the place is called.
Okay.
Prime. Then I don't know. Yeah, it's just another day over there.
And then like Jake doesn't exist in the alternate universe that we know of. I still I had some conspiracy theory a while ago about how alternate Jennifer didn't had a Jake but didn't tell alt Cisco. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he exists.
Alternate Bashir is not the kind of guy who would be on his way somewhere and he gets a distress call, they need medical help. He'd be like, nah, screw them.
True. But yeah, I'm just imagining like alternate Jake being like he's like this big tough guy hero of the rebellion or something.
Oh. Okay. No, I buy it. He's spent those years that his mom had him in hiding getting like really swole.
Right.
So he can, be like the Conan the Barbarian of this rebellion.
Mm-hmm. She's been secretly like Sarah Connoring him the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So you got anything else before we wrap it up?
No, I don't think so.
All right. So we'll go ahead and thank you guys for joining us today. You can find all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube. There's apparently 1 million podcast apps that we're on that I wasn't aware of.
Nice.
Like Podman or Pod. I'm making these up, but
you have a bunch of apps out there that are just podcatchers where they pull in podcasts from everywhere so that people will use their app.
Yeah, I was looking at the list of all the sources of listens, and there's just all these apps that I've never heard of. Anyway, or wherever you're listening to this, you can find all our old episodes.
Yeah, if you're already listening to this, then just keep going.
Right. You don't have to change platforms unless you're in your car and then you want to get now you want to go somewhere else where you can't use I don't know.
I mean, you could get slightly more information watching on YouTube as there are some visuals included.
Right.
But I'm gonna be honest with you, it's not that much more.
Right. It's well, maybe if you found it on YouTube and then tomorrow you want to get into work and listen to some more of our episodes, then you can fire up your podcast app and then
there you go.
Anyway, just some public service announcement there for that. Anyway, my name is Fletcher. About to say goodbye is Data.
Gaziza again.
Gaziza. We look forward to seeing you for our next discussion, but remember, don't stand between me and the Quark Tajino.